Mate, you'll be disappointed. It's only like 13 grand, 14 grand.
Oh,
Do you know, I don't know. I guess with the whole PXG, I mean, there's a lot of people online that love to hype up PXG is expensive for this, PXG is expensive for that. I mean, but if you look into it right now, you can get a set of 0211 irons, five to pitching wedge for just over 750 quid, which is,
what?
there you go. Which I think the best example I've got just to finish it up on there is you've won the lottery, you decide you're going to go out and you're going to buy a Lamborghini Aventador, but you've absolutely blown everything on buying the car. So when you need to change the tyres, you just put on some 50 quid per wheel used stuff rather than £500 a corner. The next time you try floor that car or hammer a roundabout, you're going to die. Or you're not going to get the maximum performance that was built into that car. So if the car is the golf club head, the shaft essentially is the tyres, if that makes sense.
There you go, Lovery. There's the intro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Below Par with myself, Joe, and Joe.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And today we are joined by Matt from PXG.
How we do, guys? You well?
So a lot of you will have probably seen Matt's Instagram. If you haven't, there'll be a link in the description below where we can have a little bit more of an insight into Matt's life and some of the stuff he does. It's amazing watching him just drive from golf club to golf club. And it's not like your average clubs either. So it's a good follow. But Matt, great to obviously have you on the podcast. Just give us a little bit more of an idea of what your role is at the moment at PXG.
So my role has just transitioned from master fitter into sales specialist. But basically in the master fitter role, my duties are to cover all fittings at the highest level from club to club, one-to-one appointments, VIP clients. And then, now I manage a lot of accounts for the Midlands and the south of the UK. So just making sure everyone's happy and making sure PXG is sold and seen as it should be, which is fantastic. So the company's, rapidly grown, and you guys have probably seen this.
Yeah.
So as things grow, new roles are made, and we're never stopped. So it's all good, exciting times.
I was going to say, how old is PXG now?
PXG is now 5 and a bit years, top of my head. So it's still new, right? It's a new company, but we've really ramped things up in the last 2 years. Is probably the best way to put it.
I was going to say, I don't think there's another company I can think of that's that new. It's like if you went into the car industry and brought out this brand new car and just went, there it is, and it beats everything. Like, that just doesn't happen.
A flash in the pan kind of thing. And the funny thing is, there are car companies that do that, but they never gain the respect
Correct.
that they should for where they go in at.
Yeah.
Because people go, well, why would I spend 100 grand on this car when I can go out and buy a 911 or that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Whereas I guess we've gone out there and there's been the haters and everything like that. But now we've gone out there, proved it. We've got a loyal following. We're still trying to get other people to go, listen here, let's not hate the brand until you've hit it and then make your mind up. And that's kind of where we're at with it, growing our troops.
Absolutely. I think something that's really cool as well, and something we're going to go through on this, is that whole kind of, there was obviously a lot of people kind of hating on the brand when it first came out, but how actually when you hit the product and that you realize that it's not quite as expensive as what it first sounds. And I think that's a real point that we want to try and get across during this, because you see somebody a bag of PXGs and you think, we were sort of having a chat off camera, it must be 20, 30 grand. And then actually you break it down, and realistically, even the most expensive set that you could put together is nowhere near that figure. And it was amazing that we were just saying a second ago, like it was an entry set was from 5 to pitching wedge was how much?
756 currently.
So you picture 756 quid. And I guess that's going to be fitted as well.
Exactly.
You can't, in the golf industry now, in terms of top brands, go to your, let's say, for example, you go to competitors like TaylorMade or Callaway, you're going to be spending that on their current models comfortably, even with a fitting. So
I think nowadays you're looking at, in the golf industry, if you're saying I'm going to get a new set of irons and I want technology that is 2020 technology and beyond, you should be at least saying to yourself, I need a budget of $1,000 plus.
Yeah.
The good thing is now we're in a really lucky position with PXG where we can go, listen, here for that under £800 price point, or 4 to pitch is £882. You can say for under 900 quid, you can get that technology, the same technology that was in Gen 2 irons for us and performed really, really well, but you can have it for well under £1,000.
That's interesting. That kind of answers my follow-on question, because I know people listening would want me to ask this. Okay. In that, I don't really want to call it entry set, well, it kind of is the entry set of irons at that same price point as your TaylorMade, your Pings, your Callaways, your whatever. Although at the same sort of price point, I know people would think, oh, blimey, yeah, PXG, same price, go straight for that. They're correct in doing that. What does that entry set give you over the same priced clubs, if that makes sense? So
at the end, what you're looking at is you're looking at a set of irons that has PXG core technology, okay? You're also then looking at PXG build quality. You're looking at the fitting process that we go through. You get the full package. So if you're coming to me for a fitting and you're like, Matt, I've got a budget of £1,000, or Matt, I've got a budget of £6,000, it doesn't matter where your budget is. You're going to be in a set of irons that are going to perform for you the best we can possibly make them perform, and you're going to get the same build quality. You're going to potentially end up with the same shafts in there, if that makes sense. Yeah. You're not essentially cutting, you're not cutting massive corners.
No, I know. I thought that probably would be the answer, but I know people listening would want me to ask that, because at the same price, I mean, with it being a cheaper set, are you cutting corners? While that might be a top end club in, let's say, for example, Ping's range, where they've put everything into it.
100%. I think the best way to put it is our Gen 3 irons really go above and beyond with technology. And we're talking that it might take other guys, their next 2-3 models to catch up to what that is. But by the time those guys have got 2-3 years down the line, we'll be in Gen 4 or whatever they're called. Do you know what I mean? So we will have developed, or you'd hope we would have developed something to advance it. God knows how they're going to do it, because they've blown it out the water with Gen 3. But that all you're getting is Gen 3 is your flagship product. It has everything you could possibly imagine. I mean, the actual material itself, the stainless steel, is forged 5 times. So I think the next industry leader is 3 times that kind of thing. So you are getting the best of the best materials. When you go into something like 0-11, which all of a sudden brings the price down, yes, you take away our perimeter weighting and the chassis of the golf club is cast, but at the end of the day, the face thickness and the material used for the face is absolutely identical to our Gen 2 and Gen 3 irons. And you're using exactly the same core that was in our Gen 2 irons. So yes, it's not going to perform as well as Gen 3, but all of a sudden, it depends where your budget's at. Do you know what I mean? And then you have to justify, what does 0-11 get me versus what does Gen 3 get me? And will I keep Gen 3 in the bag longer? And if I keep it in the bag longer, is it actually financially better 3-5 years down the line, if that makes sense?
I was going to say, this is almost like, it almost kind of, and this is a really bad example, but it's like tellies. They bring out this latest all singing, all dancing telly, and you go into Curry's and it's £6,000 sat there, and you're like, that picture is absolutely amazing. But in 3 or 4 years' time, every telly on the shop floor is going to look like that, and it's going to be 500 or 600 quid. But then there's going to be another telly out, and you look at it and go, that's mental. And it's kind of that, when you, that gap, that kind of 3 or 4 years ahead, yes, you have to pay the extra, but it's going to last, and your tech's going to be better than what you've currently got. Exactly. It's just that little bit better, but like unless you looked at both side by side, you wouldn't, let's example, hit, the cheaper ones that you're on about a second ago, you wouldn't hit them and go, oh, they don't feel, if you've not hit the new ones, you're not going to hit them and think, oh, they don't feel right.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? You kind of have that relationship.
You're not going to hit, whatever you're playing currently, if you hit our 0-11 irons, I guarantee you'll go, I'll give you that. They feel great.
Yeah.
And the best part is, in theory, well, they are cast, right? So the chassis of that golf club is cast. But the way that the actual face, the face is laser welded on, and you've got our TPE, our core behind that face, you just wouldn't know it, which is the great thing. So we've kind of completely transformed how the cast club should be perceived.
And obviously, we were saying earlier about quality and things. Like, I know that PXG's manufacturing tolerances are really tight, aren't they, compared to some other brands? I mean, I've had it, and I won't name the brand, but I've had loads of fittings with their putters. And I've seen it before where I had one at -2 degrees and one at 5 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these two putters and thinking, how on earth can it ever leave the factory?
Yeah. I mean, I've measured a customer's putter at 9 before. And my initial question was, when did you throw this last? And he actually said he'd won it in a competition like a week prior. So he probably hadn't even gamed it, and it was pretty high. And there's club builders out there that will be maybe watching this and going, I know exactly what you're saying, but the issue is you can create the world's best product, but if all of a sudden it's not where it should be in terms of tolerance, then the build's going to be next to impossible, or the performance not going to be quite where it should be. I think the key thing for us, especially through the fitting process, I'm not sure if this is what I think it is still the case, but we were the first, and I think we still are the only company that swing weights every club that we fit for someone. Yeah. So if you're hitting a certain product, and I put this shaft in, or I change the length, or the weight just changes ever so slightly. I mean, look at our golf clubs heads, for example. There's one. All of a sudden, if I start changing these, that changes the swing weight. And all of a sudden, then, if I was to ship you the perfect head, the perfect shaft in every single combination, but the swing weight wasn't quite right, you'd be calling me back and going, oh, Matt, something's not quite right. But I can't pin it down. When I bomb it, but I'm not as consistent as on the day. But the good thing is, we can just say to our builders, listen here, this guy was fit for a driver at D5, D5 and a half, whatever. And that's what arrives out the box for you to exactly what you hit. Great.
That sort of thing, then you would kind of, let's say you would then maybe compare it to, and I'm not going to name competitors at the moment, but let's say, for example, compare it to competitors, and let's say they work within a 2-degree tolerance. So on Lyngl, you're fitted for 2 degrees upright, and they come as standard, and the other one's 4 degrees up. You know, you would look at that, and it's unlikely to get that, yes, but, you know, playing devil's advocate. But you imagine you've got those two numbers. Well, if you're paying, let's say for that, you know, as we were saying with the standard product, you were paying for that, but you're getting something that might be just that little bit more accurate, that little bit more tailor-made, that, you know, and it's going to come in at that figure, not tailor-made in the brand.
Yeah, you're not going to name brands.
I could have put that a bit differently, couldn't I?
Right in.
That. But you know what I mean? So, you know, you get something that's custom built. There we go, custom built. And you know it's exactly the same as what you hit on that day. And it arrives perfect. You can put it in a loft and line machine, check it, and it's perfect. Yeah. You just think, great, you know, that is the extra step.
Yeah. I think we're really lucky, like us three here right now, we're really lucky that if products arrive with us for our own personal use, we have access to the machines to actually look at loft and line.
Yeah.
Whereas the average golfer or the average customer doesn't have that. They just have to go on the fact and trust that what they're receiving is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what customers need to know, that when they're opening that famous black box of PXG clubs, that is exactly what they said, yes, that's what I want. And they've ordered there and then through their fitting. It's just been custom built to their specs. I think as well, it's important to say custom fit and custom built is different, and they go hand in hand. You can get custom fit, but if then you let down that side by the custom build, it's not going to perform. And do you know what? There's probably no point in getting custom fit if that's the case. And I'm not picking on any brands or anything like that. It's just it's a given. It's like your clubs have to be built correct for what you were fit for, or they're just not going to perform.
Yeah. So let's say PXG keeps going in the direction that it is currently going in, which is straight up, which is great. Those standards, I mean, I imagine the answer is probably yes, but with more demand, are those standards going to be easily retained, let's call it?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen is Bob Parsons, who's the owner of our company, he puts, rather than all of a sudden just employing, 30 more guys and then there's 150 more percent of the volume going up and people just have to slam it through. Bob's very clever in the way that he will reinvest money back into the business where it's needed, so that if anything, as the company grows, we're able to keep those tolerances where they should be. The quality will only go up, that kind of thing. That's the best way to move forwards. The last thing, if you create like a fantastic name for yourself where PXG has, and then all of a sudden you expand further and things start going downhill, it's game over. So you can only keep going up and the quality can only keep getting better.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, agree.
And I think there's a lot of like advocates for us out there. The guys that play, the guys that started, they played Gen 1 and then they came into us at Gen 2 and then they're playing Gen 3. I think they've seen that the quality has just gone on and on and on and got better and better as they've played those sets, which is awesome.
What I find really fascinating as well, PXG, so let's just go back to the whole cost thing again, because I know a lot of people are going to kind of be, they're always umming and ahhing. It's one of the first things you hear when, especially at our place, when we say, we do sell PXG, you get that, I can't afford that. Mm-hmm. But then they go out and buy an Epic Flash with a Tour AD in it, and it's 800 and something quid. And, but let's chat about shafts, because I think this is fascinating. So I remember back in the day when I was playing, and I mean, I'm talking, a few years back, I had a Titleist, I think it was the F2 or something along those lines. D2? No, not D2.
Yeah, D2.
The D2?
What are you talking about? Driver or fairway wood?
Fairway wood.
Oh, fairway. F. Okay.
Yeah. F2, but I can't remember what it had after it. It was the low spin one.
You'll never guess what the F stands for.
just as well, just for the viewers' interest, we're going to do it live on this, but with the direction that the channel is going to go, it's just as well Joe's not going to go into the club side of things, and he's going to keep to the coaching.
Okay.
Edit. You're in charge of the edit. You can put that in.
I'm in charge of the edit. This bit's getting rid of. I'm just going to go. So back in the day, I used to game a Titleist F2, and I absolutely loved it. It was the low spin one. But I remember looking at the shaft, it would say designed for Titleist. Yeah. So it was obviously a shaft, and I think it was a Diamana, and it was designed for Titleist. It's interesting that you guys don't do that. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with shafts?
Yeah, I guess the key word that people would use for that is watered down. So what the made for stuff is typically a mass-produced version of that particular model. So a shaft would be tested on tour, validated on tour. It's probably going to sit at, say, $400. But then a shaft company is going to want to put it in there because one of their key players is using, or it's seen to be the hot new biggest thing. But if they put that shaft in there, their 400-pound driver is, like you said, it's going to be an 850-pound driver. So how do you get your prices back down? Well, you buy loads of them, and potentially certain materials aren't in that shaft that are in the tour version, which is fine. I mean, if it works for you, if you're playing a shaft like that and it works for you, awesome. Yeah. But I mean, we're really lucky. So one of the vans I've got outside has, I did a stock tech the other day, 414 shafts on board. Every single one of those shafts, yeah, I know. So the stock take took a couple of days. So every single one of those shafts is a real deal shaft. If you were to go on a tour van and open the drawers, it's exactly the same shaft as that. It's not made for an exclusive or that kind of thing. A massive bulk of those are going to be free of charge. And then there's certain options that, would have to be custom ordered or are like exotics. They're the ones that are made in like smaller batches, so they're going to cost. But people understand that. So going back to your example, if I was to take a Tour AD shaft nowadays, I mean, I've actually got one right here. If I was to take a Tour AD shaft and put it in one of our drivers right now, you're talking like, let's talk ballpark of £700, okay? Which actually isn't or it should be similar, if not maybe less than if you were to take another competitor and put that product in. I think what we've been doing and what I've been doing for the last 3.5 years, and actually even before my time with PXG, is educating people into the reason you should play this and just pay that little bit of difference is because it all comes down to quality. You do actually get what you pay for. These smaller produced batch shafts, they have certain materials in, like a great one to say is, and you see it everywhere when you look on tour. I mean, if you actually go in any pro shop and look any racket clubs, you'll probably see a handful. It's the Tensai range of shafts. So Mitsubishi have done really great things with that shaft. But I guess the key thing to say about it is there's a CK Pro model and a normal model. So the normal model you'll see in quite a lot of golf clubs, and we actually use, and the reason I'm using this example is because with PXG, we use that normal model in the lighter weight stuff. So like the 50 gram regs and stuff like that. But for the stronger hitters who need a little bit kind of more rigid shaft there, we use the CK Pro model. So that's actually when you start getting a bore on tip through the shaft. And the only way you'd know that is it's got an ever so slightly small etched bore on tip.
Yeah.
If you don't see that, you think a normal one is this $400 shaft imposed to a $50 shaft, that kind of thing. Right. And I mean, that same shaft as well, it's got carbon Kevlar that runs through the top of the shaft. But if you imagine you then take all of those amazing products and materials out, what you left with? Well, you're just left with carbon fiber and prepeg, which is glue. And that's what I'd say to people is, like, if you need a certain shaft and it's going to cost you, say it's going to cost you £150 to have that perfectly fit custom shaft in there, but you're going to keep that shaft in there unless you're changing something massive. It's a worthwhile investment, because as golfers we'll get excited. We go out there and we spend £400 on a putter, and we spend, you know, £500-600 on a driver. Why would you not then match that up with the shaft you need? I think the best example I've got, just to finish it up on there, is you've won the lottery. You decide you're going to go out and you're going to buy a Lamborghini Aventador, but you've absolutely blown everything on buying the car. So when you need to change the tires, you just put on some 50 quid per wheel used stuff rather than £500 a corner. The next time you try floor that car or hammer a roundabout, you're going to die, or you're not going to get the maximum performance that was built into that car. So if the car is the golf club head, the shaft essentially is the tires, if that makes sense.
There you go, Lovery. There's the intro.
There it is.
Boom.
But no, but to be honest, the thing is, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And like when the SLDR first came out, I bought a Tour AD in that, and it was a huge upcharge compared to the standard shaft. Like, I think I paid like 300 and something quid for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I had that shaft in there, and then had it in my M2, and then I gave it to Joe, and I think now Joe's got rid of it and it's gone to somebody else. But that shaft's still out there somewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, we're talking 4 or 5 years or so that's been out, and it's amazing how, as I say, that shaft to me, it just made the club feel different, and that's why I went for it.
See, I'm very lucky, right? So I get my PXG clubs as part of the job, which is awesome. But the shaft that I fit myself for and was then validated by another fitter, I couldn't get free of charge. Okay. So as a club fitter that's normally used to getting their clubs free or whatever, all of a sudden I then was faced with, I need to drop, I think it was like 270 quid for the certain shaft. But I was like, hold up, I do this for my job. I preach every day. I can't not get fit for something and then not have it in my clubs, because I would always have 90% rather than 100. So I had that particular shaft, and I've gained it now since being with the company. So it's not actually changed. The thing is, some new shafts have come out recently, which means post-lockdown, I will do some testing, but if they don't perform better, they don't perform better, and I stick with what I was in.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean, I am also, as everyone is well aware, looking for a new driver shaft for mine. Won't go into any details on that in today's video, but I'm looking for new driver shafts. It'll be interesting at some point when I do some data testing to kind of be able to back up some of Matt's points here and show how actually an ill-fitting shaft is going to make a huge difference to my driver results. So I think that'll be interesting.
I think what we should do a video on is that the head is going to do 90% of the work for you, and the shaft is going to do the last little remainder.
We'll do it.
So I think that's another misconception, is the fact that people, the word people use that almost makes me bang my head against the wall, but I get it, is they can say the shaft is the engine, the shaft is the engine. Well, it's not, because the ball's coming off the face.
Yeah.
The shaft is the tires on your car. It's the one thing that gets you from here to here as consistently as possible, time and time again. So if you were to imagine just tying a piece of string to the driver head and trying to hit a ball, you're not going to make contact with the ball too many times. But if you're on a properly fitted shaft, you're going to do it time and time and time again. And I think that's the key thing to put across about the shafts, is that.
We'll say, Matt, thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, we're going to do part 2 in a moment. Steve-o, thank you. Good to see you.
No, thank you. I tried to play a bit of devil's advocate in there. Hopefully it helped the viewers.
Make sure to click the like on this video. Make sure to subscribe. Check out Matt's Instagram page as well. That'll be linked down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. See you all soon.
Bye-bye.